Tuesday, the 26th of September, 2006. It is now 5:50 p.m. Councilwoman Bell is present, and Councilman Hodge is here, stepped out for a second. Vice Mayor Losner, Councilwoman Garner, and Councilman Porter. Move approval of the September 12, 2006 minutes. Is that motion? Moved by Ms. Bell. Is that second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Mr. Porter. Any questions on the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2B, we have a presentation by Buxton on community ID.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, Representative from
That's it.
Blessing came all the way from Fort Worth, Texas, to come
Community
and
identification.
make a
Bringing in the
presentation.
proper business to fit the
Mayor
community.
and Council.
Is this the one I haven't been convinced yet?
Again.
This is a real rough one,
Give it your best shot.
but I'll work on it.
That was God.
Mayor and Council, Homestead tonight. My name is Chip Rogers. I'm Vice President of the Eastern Region for a company out of Fort Worth, Texas. Buxton is quite simply a site. Our clients include everything from fast federal We started working with Federal Express 4 years ago. One of the first things Kinko's have made expansion. Today, about 210 cities in 30 states. Tonight is specifically what traditionally in so the more progressive would say within 8 months, 40,000 households, or whatever that number happened to be. Who's buying their this is the number we need to do retail community. And it's we're spending information in the country and effectively the world. Tom Buxton likes to say, what you did yesterday to four we can tell you if you drink red wine or white. How often you shop at the gas pump. Basically, if you've ever used a credit card to make a purchase, if you paper, magazines, etc., you are feeding databases. Database and built the automation. Think about how this information is used. There are like you in your area, the retailer. Basically, it provides, it's kind of hard. It takes every household in the United States, divides us all up as consumers based on how we're making our purchasing behavior. And at a demographic level, these people look like this. More likely than the average American to mount a bicycle. Buckets, and there are 4,500 of these individual categories for each. That gives us roughly 375,000 individual. What we do that I think is so powerful and really every retail location. Of every Applebee's in the United States, of every Bass Pro in the United States, of every container store in the United States. Starting to do is see who the to the DNA of who that retailer is targeting as customers. See the blue dots popping out? Those are households. Household level based on our consumer behaviors. You go to any retailer. Applebee's typically needs about 13,000 of their potential clients in the marketplace to build a store. That's 15,000. yet no action applied. Just as important, what we that are not coming to markets that look like this. It's a fine retailer, I have no problem with AutoZone, but it's target in economic development. But we can see that AutoZone has very specific customers. They're looking for the men that are doing tune-ups on their cars in their garages on the weekend. Clustered at the bottom of the map at the top, but not in the area store and marketplace. This one. They would only look at marketplaces at about 100,000 households. That's a problem. They had built a store in every abundant locations. We've got to grow to survive, as does any. One of the things we found, in this case, and I think this may be a pure one, households, they need 14,000 of their clients. When we clustered in the smaller community, even have just as many of their to start summarizing what we're doing. For each, we're establishing a profile. The drive time trade area, establishing the household profile, who those consumers are, who our customers are. Look at those as phase one. Independently, we're going to back and tell you what the demand for guitars, cameras, for canned fish, for dry goods, for men's work boots, etc. Look at every retailer in the country hesitant to buy those that are going to make an economic best 20. So if they're going to help you bring other retailers. So we have great standing with those retailers, great credibility. Gets us away from going to a and we've worked with Buxton to do that. Credibility that we bring to the table this year. Probably the most important page of page first. When she sees who are getting the service in the marketplace and the blue bars or that core customer, that bottom half of that, it's hard to see. Said I would be fairly brief.
Any comments?
Yes,
You know there's comments.
Spell?
thank you. 2 summers ago, I attended the presentation from Buxton, and I guess I could say I got it. I got the point. It's not just identifying the customers, which is the people. And that's generally what a company does, is they say, oh, there's X amount of people here, so we're going to go here because we've got the people. So I think you made it very clear, it's not just the people, it's the customers, identifying customers. And we thought it was worth it, and I'm not going to speak for Councilman Hodge and Mr. Losner, because the 3 of us were sat in there and came back here, and I believe it was Councilman Hodge that asked for the presentation to be done here. And I was sold. I was sold because it brings top quality business into the community that's going to survive, that's going to work, it's going to work hand in hand. So it's kind of a two-way exchange, if you will. And I thought it was very reasonable and money well spent to bring in the right kind of companies that are going to survive here in town. So I liked it. I liked the idea, and I liked the presentation. Thank you.
The vice mayor always gone on record and talk about the market will take care of itself.
No, I don't
That's
think
the real
that's it.
estate market. That's not the commercial market.
The market, and I think as I look at this, I think it's a beautiful product. I have no problem with it. I just don't see where the city should take the lead role in soliciting this product. See, to me, the retailers out there, as the gentleman said in his presentation, most of them is on board with this company already. So what is it that you're asking the city to do? Because it's, to me, we have the demographics, they have the expertise, they have the statistics, they got the predictive modeling. So
Probably.
to me, the Chili's and others will take advantage of the research and determine whether Homestead is the place to be. But I
would
don't see why we should.
I would imagine it's because they haven't studied our demographics yet. And if we invite them in to study our demographics, then that would give entree to the companies. But let's hear from Buxton himself.
Well, that is a great point, Mayor, and I wish every retailer in the country worked for us. What we hear frequently from the retail community when we're working with cities.
In the microphone, so they can. It's probably turned off, too.
How's this? Great. Where were we? Yes, what we hear frequently from retailers is, you are right, we looked at that community 5, 6, 7 years ago, we passed for certain reasons. You are right, Buxton, we need to circle back to that community. And we have clients that are developers, but developers have different goals than you have as municipal leaders. Their goals are to get a property leased, get that space filled. And they don't care too much about having that overall list available to the entire development community, all the people that are working in the city, to find out what the opportunities are and who to target. They're looking at a very specific piece. What we're trying to do is work with our client cities is, again, to understand that opportunity, understand how to present that, how to get the retailers who looked at you before or maybe have never looked at you to stop and look. When I'm making retail site selection decisions in Chicago or in San Diego or Seattle, wherever I happen to be, I don't know about Homestead, Florida. And what we want to do is work with you to craft the proper message in the jargon that those retailers are used to looking at it in, and provide that to them to get you on that list, to get them to start looking at your marketplace. Because in reality, many of them may have never looked, or if they have looked, they have passed for other reasons.
Just to give a little background on in support of what he's saying. We've grown as a city at a rapid pace, and everyone here knows that the census that was done in 2000 definitely don't reflect what we are today, the size of the city we are today. Our demographics has changed, our average income has changed. I mean, we use a lot of our utility services to try and predict a lot of that information, but that's information that's readily not available. And basically the idea here is because that we have grown so rapidly and still growing at a rapid pace, that we'll be able to have this fresh information available to be able to present, and not only as a city as a whole, and to get on the radar with the retailers, but this information also can be used. I think we get this information that we can utilize on our website when we're doing our marketing through Ms. Gardner's committee. This information that can be utilized through that to show how big of a city and how well formed that we've become. And just to take it a step further, for us, the question to need and where we need, my visualization at this point is right now is with our downtown. CRA is rapidly working on getting the RFP available for the expansion of Larson Park and the development that we're going to be doing around there. And I envision that area to become a tourist spot, and being able to bring in the right retailers, have the park with the retail, surrounding it, being, a place where people want to come and shop. And I think that will be the real turnaround for our downtown area, because not only will we have individuals there to shop, but then it'll make others be interested in the properties around it and increase the activity that we have for our downtown. And knowing the fact that we're going to be putting our city hall there and working really hard on the Seminole Theater, it just kind of cohesively go together to have, to be able to go there, maybe go to the theater, and when you finish the theater, walk around and go to a restaurant or go shopping, get a cup of coffee and sit in a internet cafe or something like that. Having that ability and that accessibility in the community, it'll really give our community some culture and a place to go, to shop and really have a good time. So really, that's what I envision the services to be used for. And definitely, I know that with the CRA, the way we're going to draft the FRP, it's going to be done in a format where as we're going to have to help that development occur. So having this tool to use as an incentive to help that development occur, and to help maybe some of the retailers bring their own dollars to help that particular developer, we will. I think it will be very advantageous to the city in the long run. Not even is not doing the math on dollars. Just the fact of quality of life, of having a true place to go and walk and shop and enjoy your family and maybe sit in the park for a little while. That's just kind of a vision that I have for our downtown, and I believe these services will greatly impact that.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I view, and I support the Buxton proposals, and always have, from this perspective. Not so much to have a book of information to present to developers who are potentially going out and buying third-party property or have already bought third-party property. And I think you hit on that the goal of developers is to lease space. And we use our current example here. DDR has done that. They've gone out, they've put down real money, and during the process, they're telling us what they are bringing to the community. And not disparaging that, but I think we all think in terms of, well, that's great, we need those, but what else is merited here in the community, or what would we like to see here that the developers are not bringing here? So I think in terms of Buxton along the lines of what are we going to do with our own property, not just our downtown property, Mr. Hodge, but this very 18-acre site upon which we are sitting right now, that hopefully within the next year we're going to revisit and take a serious look and begin the steps of what's going to happen here. And I think we've all been in agreement, and the community wants us to have a real landmark, something out of the ordinary, a real icon here. And what came to my mind tonight is it realistic to pursue outdoor role for this site? Or, pick any other icon, whether it be a Bloomingdale's, or whether it be, whatever it may be, whatever the icon may be for this site, that we have that arsenal so that we can, if you will, cut out the middleman and go directly to that retailer or commercial entity and say, hey, look at us, we can demonstrate to you that you can be successful on this city-owned site. Let's strike a deal. That's where I'm coming from in my support from Buxton. It's certainly not to go to a private developer that's already done their own thing with their own property and say, hey, why aren't you doing this, or why don't you do this? That the use of the information to be compiled would be for our benefit, for our own city-owned property, whether it be here or downtown or both. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Any more comments?
A couple questions,
Ms. Garner?
Mayor. Thank you. I wasn't attending when they had the original presentation, and it's a lot more in-depth than I thought. It's actually very interesting.
Yes, ma'am.
Just wondered, how long of a process would this be for you to look at us?
From start to finish, it's about 60 business days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the data exists. It's amazing when you think about how much information about us as consumers is already there. And what we're starting to do is work with you then to start delineating what sites you're going to look at, what the trade areas look like, and their approval processes through the project, where we come back to you and work with you on what our findings are, make sure we're all in agreement before we move on to the next stage. But the actual data exists. It's working with you to start outlining how we're going to address that.
Okay. And how much does this cost?
It's $60,000 to do the project.
For 3 specific sites?
3 sites, yes.
Which are City Hall?
We choose them.
We choose them?
You choose them.
So if we wanted additional information in the future, or we wanted something else, or are you going to just give us all this information after we do 3 sites and it's ours to use with how we wish, or is it specifically just you're working on this site and you're going to work with these retailers for us?
Both. The data is proprietary. Once we deliver it to you, it's your information, and you can do with it as you wish. We have a lot of chambers that post the retail trade potential on their websites because they want their local retailers to understand the opportunities before they start the recruitment process. Are there things that we can capture locally for our local businesses? And chambers actually use that information that way. So we provide that information, and then if you come back to us in 3 or 4 years and say, hey, we've successfully recruited these guys, we want to refresh the project, we do that at a greatly discounted rate. We have client cities, a number of them, that will come back to us year after year and do additional sites, and there's a fee for doing that. So.
Well, I like the feeling of us having some kind of control, because I get complaints from people all the time, oh, that's great, this is coming, but where's our bookstore, and where's this? So to give us control to say, please look for this, or, we want this here, I like that.
One of the great things, and I don't want to dominate your entire meeting, but one of the great things is as elected officials, you hear probably a lot, how come we haven't gotten this, or we need this, and we need this. And this is a platform for you to say, we are actively pursuing these types of businesses, or we have done the analysis and they're just not coming to markets that look like ours, and we can factually support that. So you really are armed with the facts at that point.
Thank you, Mayor.
Question, Mayor?
Mr. Wallman and then Mr. Porter.
Good evening. I had an opportunity, and I think it was you. I heard the company speak at a conference. It's been about 3 or 4 years ago. And have you been with the company that long?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it was you. I think we had a little talk.
Was I thinner?
Yes. Was I?
Most of us were.
But I'm very impressed and very enthused, and I heard you do I think it was an hour and a half presentation. It was a panel that you were setting on a panel with some other people from I think the league. I don't remember. But
We had a client city at that, I bet.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Talking about their case study, yes.
Yes, and it's been several years ago. But I'm all for this, but my only question to you is, when I was listening to the panel and listening to the presentation, you say you bring the data, you bring the demographics, you tell us everything, you supply us with a nice, tidy box of information. My concern is, do you also give us contact information?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I never got to ask that question at the time of the presentation. I think it's so important to have a contact regional person that we can go directly to if we have questions or if we want to entice them to come to our city.
And in each of the packets that are specific to that retailer, we tell you who the proper contact is for the region,
Good.
who is the highest level of contact, because the regional people tend to change quite a bit, address, phone numbers, fax numbers, what their tenant mix typically looks like, what square footage requirement they have, what their closest location is, what their expansion plans are in Florida. We're providing all those materials.
See, to me, that's the most important thing, is to know who to contact.
Yes.
Because I know, just as an individual trying to contact different companies and things, it's very difficult unless you know the go-to person to that handles, the development end. Also, you say that this is for 3 specific sites. How do you determine the size of the site? In other words, would downtown be a site? Would this property be a site? I mean, are there dimensions or?
For us, a site just means an anchor point to a map.
Okay.
So it can be a street address, it can be an intersection, it can be a long line, it can be a corridor. In the city of Jacksonville, we actually did the Kings Road corridor, which is a couple of miles long. So it was looking along the corridor what the demand was along that. So we would work with you to help understand that.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Wallman. Mr. Porter?
Just a couple of questions. How long what's the life expectancy of the numbers that you would produce? Because when you see a community that's doubling and tripling like our community is, how long are those numbers accurate?
Based on your growth, and every city is different, but I would say 3 to 4 years, because what we're going to help you do is forecast, is start looking at where that growth is going and what sites have been platted for residential growth, how many households. We did a project in Midtown Atlanta where they have lots of vertical growth, so we actually sat down with them and looked at every property by block group, how many units are coming online in the next 4 to 5 years. The other part of that is the retail community is changing, and that sometimes affects the deliverables as much as anything. In 3 to 4 years, there will be retailers we've never heard of today that are going to be the hottest thing on the planet. We look at about a 4-year life cycle, or a shelf life on the projects.
Well, from the city's perspective, obviously not inclusive of the circle that you imagine outside your city limits. I know that was, certainly the city itself can put a number on the numbers of units that are going to be built and the size, and all that information is currently available to us inside our own jurisdiction. The purchasing habits or the consumption habits of those people that may be coming in or aren't in here, let's just say some of these houses may be unoccupied. My issue or concern or question would be, is it the appropriate time? When is the appropriate time to do it? Closer towards when we're getting towards where the projects might be coming online, like we talk about the City Hall. Hopefully this location may be a year or so away. Is it better to do a study now, or is it better to wait and do a study closer towards the time when the project might be more likely to come out of the ground, let's just say. Because for me, from the perspective of the city, obviously it's a tool, and I think it's a good tool that could be used by the chambers or by other marketing agencies to go out and try to lure in potential retail groups. The issue is, for me, is that if we sell, let's just say, if we were going to develop this as a city, develop this piece of property, certainly we would, as the owner of that property and or the developer of that property, want to have the information that you're talking about.
Right.
For me, how do we go compile that information, go out, sell a piece of property, and then how's that developer going to be realistically, and we expect that they would use that information? You see what I'm getting at? I mean, I know you're producing it, but developers, even today when the developer comes in, buys a piece of property, we get a site plan that says this is a restaurant location, this is an out parcel, out parcel, out parcel, out parcel. We don't know going into that what those are going to be. Obviously, that's driven by the private sector, which would be the people that you work for. How does it help the city develop this properly? You see what I'm getting at?
Certainly. I think first and foremost, I think you, and I don't want to keep harping on this, first is understanding the retail opportunity here. Understanding what would be a fit here if you decided to go that route. I would assume that you are, but there's, chances you might want to do other things with the property. So let us help understand what you can do with this if you choose to go that route. When you start talking about, the shelf life and that type of thing, when you look at how long it takes to do these, now is the time to start making those plans, because once you identify the retailers, it's maybe an 18 to 24 month project before they come in. And they're already making decisions where they're going in 2008 and 2009. So now is the time to be in front of those types of people. And then understanding, again, what you can do with this property or your downtown, and making sure you're effectively and wisely doing the due diligence that you need to do to make decisions on those properties. I don't know if I answered your question. I think
so. And again, I'm not suggesting that this is not a tool that the city should use at all. My only concern is that obviously the growth pattern that we've seen and where the growth is now and where the growth may be 3 years from now, I'm just questioning the time frame. Is it better to do it in this year's issue, or is it better to wait a year, and how can we apply it and actually encourage a purchaser of city-owned properties to use that information? That's the only issue.
A great analogy, and not saying the city would go get financing, but we did a project in Cape Coral, and I was at the International Council of Shopping Centers convention a month or so ago in Orlando, and I happened to be sitting at a breakfast across from a gentleman who's a shopping center developer. And he said, what do you do? And I told him, and he said, did you guys do the project in Cape Coral? And I said, yes. And he said, I used that information. The city made that available to me, and I was able to take that to get financing for that project. And again, it's understanding those opportunities, understanding the potential, who the clients are, what types of retailers should fit there, so you can sell that vision.
Okay, final question. Based on the $60,000 initial investment, assuming, my assumption is we're doing it too early, my assumption. To come back in and reproduce it, clean it up, and update it, what would an approximate idea of the cost be?
It'd be half of your fee.
It'd be $30,000
in 3 to 4 years
Basically, every time it needed to be updated, it would be another, could be a potential $30,000 initial.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Let me ask a final question.
Yes, sir.
Give me a distinction between, say, your research versus the big box research, like the BJ's and the Home Depot. They have a research arm of their business that does pretty much what you do. They do the demographics and...
Or they may outsource it to us.
No, they may outsource it to you all, but... So, I'm still trying to figure out in my mind the benefit of this research for Homestead more so than the benefit we research for BJ's. And I'm of the opinion with the rooftops, these retail companies are coming to Homestead. And their research will tell them that. Once you get a certain number in your community, and they typically have that information readily available, and they make a determination whether they're coming here or not. So are we duplicating efforts here by buying into your presentation versus allowing these companies that have a research arm and using their data to make a determination where they're going to locate the homestead?
I don't know if it's unfortunate, it's fortunate for me, but it's true. You are competing, whether you know it or not, with every other city in the United States for those locations. There are markets, they're going to build a certain number of stores, and you are competing with every other community that's out there marketing themselves to get those stores to their market. They may have, depending on the size of the retailer, they may be looking at this internally, they may be outsourcing it to us, but our retail clients don't come to us and say, show us every city where we can go. I mean, sometimes they do, but mostly what they're doing is coming and saying, we're going to build a store here if your analysis supports that. So they come to us and say, we're going to build a store at Homestead. Tell us how it will perform. Tell us what our revenues will be. So you're competing with everyone else, even though it's under the covers and you don't know it. And we want to give you the tools to compete and put yourself in the marketplace.
Can I just make a comment? I can ask a question if you don't want me to, but I just want to make a comment. As a realtor, I can tell you that, I mean, I have made phone calls to so many national retailers asking them if they might be interested in such and such, or, you know, land all over Florida. And you're lucky if that particular retailer has already found Homestead and they've already put a little tag on the city of Homestead, and then they will come and they will do their research. But unfortunately, you said it, we are competing with every city in the United States. Sure. And we think we're the only ones, but there's many cities like us. And with the downwards spiral in real estate sales, you know, I mean, we have to be on top of our game. I also look at it as a chance to have a choice. Instead of having a developer come to this council and say, we have a shopping center, these are the stores that we've earmarked to go in here, we as a council would have a choice to decide whether or not to contact a major, let's say Macy's, forget some details, Macy's, or a bookstore or whatever. We have that choice to do that based upon your demographics and your research that you feed to us. So I look at it as a choice, and I also look at it as great competition.
I had a mayor in Alabama tell me about a year ago, I don't need another Dollar General store. I don't need another Cash America. I don't need another pawn shop. And not that nothing against those businesses, but they're not helping you in the long run.
I thought I was trying to make a point.
So how do we get into the game to go after the people we want to affect quality of life in this community?
And I never realized just how hard it was to break those barriers. And I listened and I agree with Mr. Porter to some extent, but I also know that it sometimes takes 4 or 5 months to even get a return phone call, you know, and I mean, it's very difficult. So it takes a 2-year span in order to get them interested or get them down here and to start the project. When I say the project, I mean just the preliminary.
Yes, ma'am. And then you have to look at distribution and staffing and building and permitting and all those other things, yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Ms. Bell?
Thank you. There's been really excellent comments and questions here, and I think that the time is actually now, especially with the drop in the real estate market. I think the time is now, and my reasoning is for all of the above. It's for the downtown area. It's for this site. and the word choice was perfect, because I was sitting here thinking in my mind, it puts us in the driver's seat. It allows us to go to a B. Dalton and say, we believe that this would work in our city. We would like you to come, and this is where we would like you to come. It allows us, it gives us the determination, and it allows the city of Homestead to determine what businesses we want to come here, not for somebody to say, we're coming to your town because this developer happens to call us here. It allows the city of Homestead, this council, to direct you to choose what businesses we want, and it allows us to go, and basically puts us in the driver's seat. And that's why I was sold on it, because it puts the choice that was stated with us. And so, and I think the time is now. I think that we need to begin this research now, and because it does, the planning stages are 18 to 24 months out. So, I think the comments and the questions have been very, very good, very helpful for me as well, but I really do heartily support it, and I think that we are really ripe right now and prime right now to begin this type of a project. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayorwoman.
Mr. Hart?
And just to do a follow-up also, again, I did mention that the RFP is currently being worked on. It's pretty much finished. Is that right, Dan?
It's underway.
Okay. So, it would be an excellent thing was once the RFP is out, we have this data to go along. So we know once the RFP go out, then we decide on who we're going to work with, and there's a 2-3 year span on that development. We can already start looking at retailers and soliciting retailers to move in that area. So the package kind of goes together. So it'd be good to have both things working, moving along side by side. So now would be a good time to be able to make that move.
One final question there, if I could. One final question. I'm sorry, Mr. Chandra. When a group comes in, are we in a position to say that you need to bring a dollar store, or are we in the position to say it needs to be a bookstore? I agree with what everybody's saying, and I'm not downing anything. I just need to know in my mind, do we have that kind of ability? Because most of the time I don't even know what the developers are putting out east now. I'm still trying to figure out what is that out parcel. If someone at City Hall knows, I wish somebody would tell me. So I'd like to be able to have that kind of control, but economically we haven't had that in the past. Can you do that from your office?
No, sir. The only thing we can do really is certain things that we want to put in don't fit because it's a B1 or B1A, et cetera, but to say you need to put a bookstore here or you need to put something else, no, we don't have that ability, sir.
So, as long as it fits based on the criteria of the land use, you can say yes or no based on that, but...
Land use zoning, then we go through the traffic analysis and everything else, yes, sir. But to actually start off by saying that we would like to have a bookstore, that's fine, but there's no way in which we can push that on anybody. And I hate to use the word push, but we can't have a bookstore myself.
Probably a little more leverage on city-owned property, wouldn't you, sir?
And I think that, that's kind of I think that's really the issue here is...
But anything else, I don't think you could...
if we take a position and say, we're going to, let's use a City Hall location as the perfect example, is, if we said we were going to maintain it, we were going to maintain ownership, work out some sort of long-term lease, whatever, then you could say it needed to be ABC. That would be part of what you put in your RFP.
If you set up an RFP, you can control more of what you want because you're asking for proposals based on certain ground rules. You're going to tell them the ground rules going in. And if you say for this thing, the RFP, let's say you make it a shopping center of some fashion, you probably can indicate some of the types of things you'd like in there. You have a little more control of it. But normally speaking, in the marketplace, we don't have that control other than zoning and land use.
Has it, Mr. Ivey, in the scheme, I don't know what the heck's wrong with my microphone. In the scheme of things, what's the estimated time frame when this piece of property would probably be up for a potential sale, RFP, whatever?
Well, it depends on two things, I think. One, if we wanted to move forward, we can move forward today with the caveat for whoever ends up with the property that we would stay here until we can move into our other site or location. Otherwise, the timeline would be longer, and then when we're ready to just about ready to move in, then you would put this, or move in, put this up on the market.
So what did you
during
say?
that transition period, so 2 ways that we could do that. I mean, right now, we could put this out for RFP, and one of the requirements were that we stay here rent-free until, our turnkey, until we move in.
Because in that particular case, this is a valuable tool for that particular. The other side of the equation would be if you're just going to, put an RFP out without any parameters as far as what is going to go here, and based on price and what you don't want here, maybe then you wouldn't necessarily need to go down this road.
Well, I think if we remember when we did this once before, but in different times, and it didn't work, one of the things that we really required or wanted to see or would make an RFP successful would to see a movie theater here, if we recall.
Hotel?
Yeah, hotel, convention, that kind of thing. And, different time, whatever, but we put that in RFP, and the one person that won that, indicated that they would do that.
And they put it all in the RFP because that's what we asked for.
That's right. We didn't say who, but what.
Right. Thank you, Mayor.
Can I, on your question, and talk about just real quickly how other cities have used our tools, is going in as a partner with a developer, going to the retailer and saying, Buxton, we know your clients are here. We have had Buxton come in and do the analysis. The city is going to work with you under these steps. We're going to assist you with, curb cuts or your infrastructure, whatever that happens to be. And your developer is there to say, and your rent is going to be this, and your neighbors are going to be this, etc. So it's how do you become a team member? How do you have that control? Exactly what you're saying. How do you get that control? You said, well, I don't know who's going into these locations. What we're trying to do is give you the knowledge to say we're targeting these types of people for these locations.
And that's the difficulty, because the developers of those parcels are the ones that are targeting, because we don't really have any control unless it's a piece of property that is a city asset. In this particular case, is City Hall. I think it's a valuable tool, and so I guess we're all talking the same talk. It's just when do we make the decision to sell this property, put this property up for RFP, whatever that issue is, and then create the tool that you would provide, which would be for us to go out and attract the appropriate fit for this piece of property, because this is an asset of the community, and the community wants a quality, something that's going to benefit the entire community, not not just one or two people. So, thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is there a motion for this issue? Is there a motion for approval?
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Hart, second by Ms. Roman.
And the question and the motion is, when is it to commence? When would the study be done? Immediately?
I think first we'll have to do a contract. We've got to come back with a contract. Will the motion be to authorize Kurt to
enter into a contract.
enter into a contract agreement with Buxton? Bring it back. Yeah, bring back the contract.
A quick question.
Ms. Roman?
Can I just ask maybe a silly question, but could you stagger the reports? Do they all have to be done at the same time? I mean, if we wanted to wait a little bit on one, I mean, if we wanted to do that, could you stagger it, or is it all done at one time?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that. I mean, the work would still be done and the fees would still be incurred.
Right.
Your recruitment process could take place over the timeline you set forth.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It only took 3 times.
Yeah, Sheila, because this is just a direction to staff, it does not need to appear on the council agenda.
No final action?
Item 2C is the discussion on the fraud hotline.
Mr. Mayor and Council,
Go ahead.
we have before you a little discussion on a program that we are considering to use here at the city. It's used in other places. It's a fraud hotline. The fraud hotline is set up to give a number of different people, vendors, citizens, employees, a venue with anonymity if they want it, to report what they think are several different things, but fraud is one of them. There's a whole list in here of the fraud, conflicts of interest, discrimination, fraudulent insurance claims. Say if we had somebody on workers' comp and they saw them out moving around when they're supposed to be immobile. These kinds of things, substance abuse, theft of money that may come to their attention or they believe it's happening, or waste of time. They see, say, work crews go and sit somewhere for 2 hours and not do anything. Those kinds of things on a regular basis. They would have a venue to call, make this report to a company that's designed and trained to ask the right questions, categorize what they're talking about based on the category of the offense that they're, or the situation that they're talking about. Have a set of questions, arrange for a callback, recontact scenario without dealing with the city. Then they get in touch with representatives of the city so that we can look at this and see if it has validity or not. It's in keeping with one internal auditor, which we've done. This is just another transparency in how we operate and another vehicle to promote that transparency in the community as well as within our ranks as employees and vendors that work with us.
Mayor, I'd like to move this recommendation, and I have a comment.
Moved by Ms. Bell, second by Mr. Hodge. Ms. Roman, comment, and then Ms. Bell. Ms. Roman?
I just wanted to say that when Jim's our internal auditor, and when Jim first brought this forward to me for review, I was a little hesitant. I actually had reservations at first, but then after I started reading it and started checking in with some of the other cities that use it, City of Mobile, City of Gainesville, some other cities throughout the United States, I just want everybody to understand, this is not a hotline where if somebody's ticked off at their boss, that they can just pick up the phone and make accusations. You know, there's a process, right, Jim? You might want to come to the microphone, Jim. But there's a process, and as I understand it, because it's been a few weeks since I've reviewed it, Jim, it's been a few weeks since I've reviewed it, but as I understand it, there's a committee of sort that would actually hear the actual complaints. Is that correct?
The committee would be of our employees. We would have 2 or 3 people who would meet after the network association, the fraud group, would call or email 3 of us in the company and follow it up with a report saying what they received over their net, their hotline.
And to me, that's very important that everyone understands that there's a process here. It's not just to get back at somebody or to let off steam or whatever. I mean, there's a process here. And for the fee, I think the fee is $1,200, if I'm not mistaken, approximately.
The fee is $1,200, yes.
I mean, it would actually, and it would also give the citizens a chance, because I know I get phone calls all the time. I saw 4 people standing around looking at a tree, or I saw this. They don't understand maybe what's going on with that tree or what's going on with that drain. But, you know, we get those phone calls. I'm sure you all get them as well. And it would give them a chance, too, to if they have a legitimate complaint, that they could call the fraud hotline and voice their concerns. I think it's needed, because I know that people are fearful in today's society of losing their job, you know, and there could be legitimate problems. And I really believe that this would be a service that we would be giving our employees. I mean, that's just my opinion. And Jim and I talked about it, and I think you feel the same way. Do you not, Jim?
Yes, I do very much. It also allows, we can target our vendors as well, because if one vendor doesn't get to vote on a thing and got eliminated for some reason, and he realizes that there may be something going on, he may be the individual that reports it. So we wanted to extend it not only to employees, but to vendors as well, and also our citizens here in Homestead.
And before we actually vote on it, I wanted Marcy, our Human Resource Director, to comment on it. Do you foresee that there would be a problem, an interdepartmental problem, or problem with the directors with this?
Well, I think one of the things we'll have to do is work out the procedures and how that was going to work, and I think I would be part of the committee to be able to evaluate certain things and what the particular complaints were that came in and how they would be dealt with. So we would have to work on procedures, how that would work.
Thank you. Jim, do you have anything else you want to say about this, or?
Well, basically, like I say, I don't have much more to say at this point, but the concept was to determine if the council wanted to proceed with it, and then we would work out the details and present back to you the finished product.
Thank you. Mayor Vice Mayor? I don't know who to turn to.
Mayor's back.
Thank you.
I just would request that we be included in these discussions because there are public records issues, there's confidentiality issues, there's issues that come to light here that have legal implications. So we'd like to be included in those meetings.
Yes.
I'll share the information that I have with the other cities with you, Richard, and I'll give it to you this evening.
Thank you.
I have a complete package. I'll be glad to give it to you, Richard.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments? Ms. Bell?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Albritton, thank you so much. I took a good long look at the package, and it's a really great idea, and I'm glad to see something like this to be implemented in the city of Homestead. It's very, very important that the citizens know that we also have accountability, and that's why I think your position is also very, very important to the city of Homestead, the taxpayers, so that we are accountable, that our vendors are accountable, that if not only something's reported internally from the citizens outside in, I mean, this is very healthy. I guess I'm trying to say it's very healthy for the city of Homestead. I got a confidential phone call just last week from an employee who doesn't dare say their name or doesn't dare go, because they're afraid of their job. And so I would love to see when this is implemented, that person could call you, could call the fraud hotline. But I have a question. What if the complaint is on somebody who's on the committee? I mean, just what if?
On the committee?
Yeah, what if there's a 3-member committee and the complaint's about one of the members of the committee?
One of the advantages is that the committee would be 3 individual people, and each person would receive the call direct from the hotline. So it's nothing that you would be able to squash.
Okay. That just occurred to me. Thank you. Thank you. I heartily recommend it, Mayor. Thank you.
And I think it's very timely with what's going on in the county. Like every week there's some news about mismanagement or fraud or what have you, so I think this is very timely. So I appreciate your efforts on it, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think that both for our employees and our citizens, it's very important. I know that there is a real fear out there sometimes, and I've, over my time here, that there's a perception of perhaps economic and political retribution for things that are legitimate concerns, and this will provide that buffer of anonymity and a third party somewhere else that will analyze that complaint and refer it as appropriate. I can just imagine that we're going to have major issues through union negotiations implementing this and dealing with many issues, but if we can get past those issues, I wholeheartedly endorse this concept of the availability of the hotline. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
This item also, Sheila, doesn't need to be on the agenda because it's just a direction to staff.
If I just might say, Jim, I would suggest that you call the sister cities that have already implemented this program, or maybe Marcy, to see how they work through the union negotiations with that. Because I made a few phone calls too, and it was a little difficult, but they have a system, so maybe it might help us out.
Item 2D is the Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc. Work Authorization Resolution, Tab 4. Moved by Mr. Hart, second by Ms. Bell. We dealt with this in the Hero. No further comments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 2E is Robert M. Levy and Associates, Inc. agreement.
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Bell, second by Mr. Hodge. Any comments? Mr. Porter?
Mr. Ivy, we've really put, in the last couple of sessions, we've put a lot of pressure on Bob, and there's been some occasions when I know there hasn't necessarily always been adequate staff. And I think one of the trips to Tallahassee was, I think you and I maybe spoke on the plane or in the cab or something about the fact that does Bob really have an adequate amount of money on behalf of the city to get the appropriate staff to champion some of the efforts that we truly have. When you and Mr. Levy spoke about this agreement, was he comfortable with those requirements?
He did not ask for an increase at this time.
Okay.
I mean, it was kind of like a don't ask, don't tell, but he did not request an increase.
Okay.
He was notified of the renewal.
Well, that's fine. I
didn't talk about personally, though. I'm going to make that clear, though.
But at some point in time, it would probably behoove us to take a look, have Bob come down and let's talk about some of the things obviously he does a lot for Homestead and he has a lot of other clients too. And I don't know if we're one of the least expensive clients or one of the most expensive clients, but there's so many things that he has to do for us on an ongoing basis. You look at a Caldy and Fay, they do a wonderful job. They're $60,000, and Bob does a wonderful job. He's $30,000. I know there's a difference in level, but I just like to make sure that he has the adequate tools in order to address the issues that we have. Because I know last year, we had the turnpike widening issue up there, and we got fairly close with that. Then we also got the tax rebate through. And then through the process, it got changed by the two houses fighting over dominance. And it went through, but it went through in a matter that we really didn't have much of an opportunity to implement it. So we're going to have to go back next year and take a look at this thing again to see how it's crafted. Hopefully we can get it crafted in a more favorable position for the city. But going into the next session, we need to make sure that Bob and his staff can do adequately what we need done, and if it's not going to be done by these numbers, maybe we need to ask him to tell us a number that will work.
I agree with you, Mr. Porter, and as I think everybody sitting here probably knows, that we get assistance from representatives that don't even have interests in our area, and that's only through the relationship with Bob and his persuasion and participation with them. Otherwise, we really wouldn't get as far as the front door, really, almost. So you make a good point.
Well, just reach out to Bob and let's make sure that he does have the appropriate tools, because we will be pounding on the doors again next year, and because we have unfinished business, all of us do, and we just want Bob to have the best available for us, and he does a good job now.
Will do.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
No other comments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Al-Qaeda and Fay agreement.
Motion, Mayor.
Moved by Ms. Ballman, second by Mr. Hodge. Any questions on the agreement? They didn't ask for an increase either, did they? This is the same from last year. Good.
As a finance chair, I'm very comfortable with both of these costs, Mayor.
No further comments?
Never pay anybody more than they ask. Thank you.
No other comments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. 2G, ordinance amending residential area council seat description.
We need to have the maps presented. While we're putting those in place, this is separate and distinct from the charter ballot questions that we have recently addressed as a council and voted to put on a ballot. The charter currently provides that basically in a non-election year, the council by ordinance can adjust the lines of the existing residential area seats. That's not to say create new seats, but to adjust the lines for the existing seats. Do we have the prior map? No, okay. All right. All right. I'll draw your attention to the smaller map on the right demonstrates the current boundaries for the residential area seats. This color, the more orangey color, going down in here next to Lake Shore and down into what we call Venetia, and in this entire area, for frame of reference, is the southwest area. The green, of course, is Ms. Garner's current seat, as shown on the right-hand map. The yellow is mine, with the central section here being the Villages of Homestead, what we commonly refer to as the Villages of Homestead seat, which is currently held by Mr. Porter. The committee made several recommendations for the adjustments of lines, and hopefully, without the benefit of the big map, and maybe we'll have it brought in a moment, I can demonstrate those for you. Again, look to the right. This area have been shifted, proposed to be shifted, and would be shifted into the Villages seat. And I apologize, Mr. Paul, I guess that's seat 3. That would be Venetia, and then those two largely undeveloped parcels would be moved into the Villages of Homestead seat, as would the Alger piece is still in there, and let me clarify that, for the vacant Alger piece next to the water treatment plant. Those are the items that affect the Villages seat, in addition to, so the little green finger here, that area is currently contained in the Villages of Homestead seat. As it exists now, some of those neighborhoods, some of those subdivisions are split by lines. So what this proposal does is moves the entire neighborhood, which is a subdivision within the Keysgate development, entirely into the current Keysgate seat. To put it in real terms, this was the issue that Mr. Lazo had in the last election, that while he lived in what we all felt was Keysgate, he was not within the Keysgate area. That corrects the division of that neighborhood. Now again, I want to point out that these are separate and distinct from whether or not the charter questions pass. The larger map reflects what would be the two additional neighborhood seats if the charter amendments pass. These will be in place irrespective of the outcome of that election. The other change also shifts the southern boundary, or the boundary between the northwest area seat and the southwest area seat, shifts it from roughly, and it varies from 13th to 15th Street, to a straight line down to Campbell Drive. Everything on the north side of Campbell Drive would be shifted into the northwest seat and out of the southwest seat, all the way over to US 1, and then on the east side of US 1, that would remain north of Campbell Drive up to about 11th Street, part of the southwest area seat. In a nutshell, those are the proposed line adjustments. Any questions?
So what you're asking for approval?
Asking for approval. This was for motion, Ms. Bell?
Yeah, I have a question. You're asking right now for a motion for the ordinance.
That's correct.
Thank you. I know this may not pertain specifically to the ordinance because it's going to pertain to the charter provision when it goes to the ballot. The charter language is very clear as I read it, as far as the two at-large seats going away and becoming specific seats. But it's not specific as to what those seats will become. I guess that comes back to ordinance. Like it doesn't specifically say on the ballot that they will be both east side seats. It just says that the two at-large seats will become designated seats.
That's correct.
Right, okay, so that comes back to the council, and the city council determines then, by ordinance, where those seats will specifically be, because the actual charter ballot language only states that the two at-large seats are going to go away.
No, I'll ask Richard to jump in here. That is not in our discretion. The ballot language is very strictly limited by the statutes and the Constitution of the state of Florida. The ordinances that were approved at the same time we approved the ballot questions specifically delineated that the 2 new seats would be East Side seats. And that is part of the educational process that needs to occur. There is absolutely no discretion whatsoever in this council in the movement of those new residential area seats if in fact they are adopted by the voters in November.
And I think your committee did a fabulous job under your direction, but I still echo my concern that if you have 2 additional east side seats, it has nothing to do with at-large or non-at-large. It's, to me, reserving 1 at-large seat and giving 1, because east side certainly needs another seat. There's absolutely no doubt about that. The east side needs another seat. But giving an additional east side seat, and so I feel like if I vote for the ordinance, I'm in fact voting for the charter amendments. Well,
no, you're not.
I know that it's separate.
No, you're not. And I share your concerns, and whether or not we support a particular charter question at this point is not relevant to the conversation. The adoption, the ordinance, if adopted, affects the boundaries as they currently exist for the 4 neighborhood seats. And quite frankly, I don't see anywhere where the line adjustments in any manner are affected by the passage or rejection of the 2 new neighborhood seats. These are adjustments to other seats that currently exist.
The one thing that I would add is that there is a Section 3, which is conditional amendment to the city code, which provides that in the event that the city charter amendment proposing to convert 2 general council member seats into additional residential seats is adopted on November 7th, the residential boundaries, which are defined in the prior section, are further revised to include and conform to the creation of the 2 additional residential seats.
But in actual practice, the adjustments of these lines do not affect the proposed 2 new seats.
Right. What I'm saying is that there's 2 parts to this ordinance.
Right.
One part is dealing with these
non-adjustments,
non-charter effective adjustments. The second part of this ordinance
is the charter.
Is the ones that implements the charter provisions.
And those legal descriptions are attached and incorporate those, but that's dependent on whether or not they're passed.
Right. Correct. So when I'm trying to get across is like, this is one ordinance that encompasses basically two things. One of them is the charter provision, and then the other ones is the other part of this one ordinance is the moving of the boundaries. Mm-hmm. So I would have kind of personally liked it if the moving of the boundary lines was one ordinance, and then the second part was the second ordinance that actually assigns the seats, because it's done as one ordinance rather than two. We really do have two issues in the one ordinance. While I have no concerns with the boundaries and the movement of the boundary lines, I do have concerns with the actual seats. And I still, stand on that, and I know you're going to get into that, but I still have a concern that you have 4 seats on the east, only 2 on the west, and then if your mayor lives on the east, you've got 5 seats on the east and only 2 on the west. So I think to be proportionate, I think that's a concern. And I do recognize what you were saying to me, that this still has to go to the voters, but because the only reason I'm bringing this up at this particular point is because the boundary provisions, as I stated earlier, are one part of the ordinance, and then the charter provisions are the second part, where there's actually assigned seats. They're not separate.
No, and you're probably right, and I will tell you that some of these line adjustments I might support, others I do not. The committee, and most of the time, and you were there, I was in a minority of the votes, kind of like being right here, insisted that it be accomplished as a package. And
would it be appropriate to ask for these to be divided so that we have 2 separate ordinances, one on the movement of the boundaries and then one actually on the assignment of the seats?
Can you do that this close to an election, Richard, where the question has already been set?
No, I think are you asking whether...
The establishment of the new seat boundaries, I think, is the question.
Right. I think what she's asking is whether we could have an ordinance that just deals with Section 2, which deals with the existing...
whatever it is, the existing adjustments versus creation of new.
And then a second ordinance that deals with the conditional amendment to the city code. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I am, and because the boundaries basically is dependent upon us. This council has nothing to do with the voters, whereas the seats actually losing the 2 at-larges, that's strictly dependent upon the voters.
If the council would like us to, we did it in one ordinance because we thought it was...
Weren't those seat boundaries already attached to the ordinances or resolutions that backed up the ballot questions?
Yeah,
those were in packages that were in place at the time the ballot questions were voted upon by the council.
So then it would have to stay together then?
That's...
Okay.
We had very lengthy ordinances that implemented that.
The ordinance that puts the matter on the ballot contains meets and bounds descriptions of the areas.
Of the new seat, well, for everything.
Of the four. It doesn't contain a description of the rest, of the other 2.
No, the 2 new, it does not.
No.
So we could unhitch these 2 issues and put them in 2 separate ordinances.
We can unhitch them.
What would be the last opportunity to adopt?
What we would do is, this is an ordinance that's before the council. What we would do is when this came back on a council, if that's the way you want to go, instead of bringing one ordinance back on the council agenda, I would bring 2 ordinances which basically say the same things.
If it's to go down this road.
Yes.
We would need to, that would indicate to me that we've got a need to reconfigure the 2 new seats if they are in fact adopted.
Can I ask a question, Vice Mayor?
And what's the last opportunity to do that? That cannot occur after the charter question.
This ordinance is the one that is setting forth these boundaries.
But the ordinance wouldn't change, it would just be split.
The substance of the ordinance would be identical. It would just be split in 2, and it would be adopted in the same schedule as this.
Right. We have line adjustments in one ordinance, and legals for everything,
and contingent legals in the other one.
So the language could essentially, I believe, stay the same. It would just be dividing it into 2 ordinances instead of 1 with basically the same language.
Exactly right. If you want to go that way. We put it in 1 because it was just sort of all came out of this, but there's no magic to it. If we
were going to split it, what would be the appropriate way to determine that here?
Just, I think this is rather important, so I think there should be a motion to approve this, but with notation to the staff to separate it into 2 separate ordinances.
I'll move that.
You can leave it this way, or you can split it.
No?
There will be no legal difference to it.
Okay. Do we have a second for that motion?
Is there a second to split, or just to keep it the same? Is there a second? Is there a second?
If I'm not cheering, I'll second it. I guess not.
Well, go ahead.
Okay, I'll second it.
Go ahead and second.
Let's stand around.
Robert's rules, you can second this.
Ms. Woolman wanted the floor, Ms. Woolman.
Well, I'm very confused because at the last town hall meeting that I went to, I thought that the districts were already carved out. And I've been on medical leave, so I apologize.
These are the same maps that were presented to the public for discussion.
Okay.
Now, what's demonstrated tonight is that those lines are here before us for adoption. And the larger map on the left is a graphic depiction of 2 issues. The creation of 2 new neighborhood seats in the 2 different colored blues, as well as the adjustments to boundary lines for certain other areas. Well, all 4 seats, all 4 of the existing seats are affected by the adjustments to the line,
I understand.
which are independent from whether or not the ballot question passes.
This is slightly, there's a piece of information that's not really on this chart, which is that in 2007, the blues are going to become a residential seat. All of the blue is going to become a residential seat, 1 residential seat.
The 2 different shades of blue.
Right, and in 2009, they will be split 5 and 6.
And I want to clarify, and I think it was...
Let me just make sure that, because she was out for a lot of these meetings, I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying.
So you're saying that the ordinance on the floor right now says that seat 5 and 6 is combined into 1?
Actually, what the ordinance says is it covers both situations. What it says is that for the purposes of, assuming the charter amendment passes, let me start from the beginning first. There's 2 things almost separately being accomplished here.
I only count 6 seats up here besides the mayor.
No, I understand. There's two things being accomplished. The first part is an adjustment to the existing boundaries of the residential seats to deal with some of the things, that's the recommendation, to deal with some of the things that the vice mayor has talked about the neighborhoods being split and the other things that he's talked about. That's the first thing. Do you have any questions about that?
No, I understand.
Okay. The second part is where it gets a little complicated. The second part, the way that the charter amendments will be on the ballot, is that in 2007, one of the at-large seats gets turned into a residential seat. And so we need a legal description for the boundaries of that residential seat. And on the map, that's the blues, both of the blues. Okay. And that's in the ordinance. The ordinance further provides that in 2009, if the charter amendment, this is again assuming the charter amendment's passed, that the blues get split and gets turned into 5 and 6, and the second at-large seat disappears.
Which is, that would be my at-large seat. So I would be in, as I understood it, seat 6, correct?
I think those are reversed because I think the intention was that the first seat to be created is to Waterstone because it's built out, with the secondary seat in 09 being the central blue, the southerly blue.
So that would be seat 6, correct?
I believe those numbers are reversed. That's the first time I've seen that map with the numbers.
I see, yes, I agree.
I think that the 5 and 6 are in fact reversed. The Waterstone area should be the 07 seat, number 5, with the darker blue being the 09 seat, if passed, as number 6.
But if I'm not mistaken, the 07 created residential seat are both 5, it would be both 5 and 6. So they are all the blue.
That's correct. The 07 seat would be whichever number it is, and I don't know, Ms. Bell, which seat are you designating?
4? 5?
It's either 5 or 6.
5 in 07 the person would have to live in 5 or 6.
Or the incumbent.
Or the incumbent. In 2009, the blues get split, and I don't know which of the numbers are, but one person would need to, the person in residential seat 5 would have to live in one of the blue areas, and the person from residential seat 6 would live in the second blue area.
Or be the incumbent. That safeguard is built in for both of those, but those numbers are in fact reversed on that map.
But, and again, maybe I heard it wrong, but is it determined that that's where the seats will be?
That's the question before us tonight.
The way the charter is written is that it says that in the event that these seats are converted, the descriptions of the areas are revised by council ordinance. And so that's what this ordinance does in anticipation of the election.
And what if it doesn't pass?
The way that I've written the ordinance, actually David wrote the ordinance beautifully, the way he wrote the ordinance was that in the event that the charter amendments fail, then that change is not made.
But that has nothing to do, for example, with the little bauble there in the green where one of the Keysgate subdivisions was split between 2 and 3. Whether or not the questions pass would not affect the line adjustments if they're approved by ordinance.
There's a contingent section of the ordinance and a non-contingent section of the ordinance. The non-contingent section is what the Vice Mayor has described, which takes care of some of these issues. That's not contingent upon what happens at the charter election. The contingent portion deals with the blues, really, and creating the one seat in 2007 and the second seat in 2009.
That's a question. Basically, by doing 2 resolutions, it gives the council the opportunity to vote for one and not vote for the other one?
Correct.
Simply put.
That's it.
Simply put, all this does is if you approve of the at-large seat being carved away or disapprove of it, by them being combined, you're lumping it all together.
Right.
By separating them apart, you can support the first one, which is to move the existing lines around and not committing to moving the at-large into a neighborhood on the second resolution.
Well, the issue of whether the seats are going to be moved into residential versus at-large seats is not in the council's hands anymore.
That's out on our hands.
That's in the voters' hands. And so the truth is that if the voters pass the charter amendment, whether you vote for this particular configuration of the blues or some other configuration, you're obligated to create those 2 descriptions for those 2 seats.
Right.
So I understand what you're saying, but the truth is that this is an implementation ordinance. If you have a problem with and I'm not expressing an opinion, if you have a problem or an issue with the creation of the 2 more residential seats, then that deals with what happens at the charter election, as opposed to this. But I understand exactly what you're saying, and it would allow someone to express displeasure, let's say, with the conversion if you split it into 2 separate ordinances, which is no problem at all if that's what you'd like.
But I guess that's the bottom line. It gives the council members the ability to vote for part but not vote for all.
Correct.
That's all it does.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mayor.
But I think it kind of provides a hazing in the process because we've already decided to put the issues on the ballot.
Correct.
So we should not be up here debating whether the seat should be created or not, as you said earlier, which is now in the hands of the voters. But we, I think, pretty much unanimously agreed to put it on the ballot and let the people make the decision. So I don't see a need to split them because, again, we have no control over the seat question.
This is a purely legislative issue for you. There's not, legally it works both ways.
In the hands of the voters now. So there's no need to split it.
But there's a motion to split it.
We've got a motion to split it.
Right.
Yeah, Ms. Bell.
First of all, I want to apologize for complicating this. I did not mean to do that. I just wanted to express that for me, if it were 2 separate ordinances, then I could comfortably vote for one and then, express how I feel about the second. And so I simply was expressing that I thought it would be better because this one ordinance deals with 2 complete issues, 2 separate issues, if you will. Yes, we are going to the ballot, absolutely. But I still, and maybe I should have just been quiet here, but I really thought that if we went ahead and separated it, because it is really 2 ordinances in one. So I felt more comfortable by just separating, but I apologize for any confusion. But I really felt like because we're dealing with 2 issues, you're dealing with a boundary issue, and then you're dealing with the actual seat issue of the seats, these particular seats. So I really felt like it should just be separated. That's all there is to it, just so we can vote yes on one and no on the other. That's all. But if the council's not comfortable with it, it's fine. I just wanted to actually make it simpler and just separate the ordinance.
Let's end any further discussion. Let's vote and move on.
The motion was to split.
The motion is to split. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah, to split, yes. Yes. 2 ayes.
Opposed? No. Okay. Let's go back to the original motion. All in favor say
I don't think we ever had a motion.
Moved by Mr. Porter, is there a second?
I just want to make sure that you understand that there's no further questions. This is complicated. I want to make sure that there's no questions that anybody else has about this, because it is complicated.
I just want to clarify one thing, and that's if this motion passes, they still have not, the lines for the seat 5 and seat 6 still has not been determined.
Yes, they have.
No, this ordinance, assuming it passes on the council, does determine the split of the lines.
It does.
It does. This ordinance, assuming our surveyor did a good job, delineates those blue areas. And it does do what you've said. It does describe those 2 new residential seats. That's exactly what it does.
If the ballot question is passed, those 2 blues are set in stone. Yeah, we've got to adjust this map because I think the designation of the numbers and the years are backwards.
And I'd ask the staff, I think Marlene...
Did we have a motion?
Been properly moved and second.
I just want to make a comment. And this, of course, I voted against the adoption of the putting on the ballot of the 2 new seats, not because Waterstone doesn't need its own seat or that area doesn't need its own seat. It was as to the timing and the inability to have a floating council member, an at-large seat, if you will. I think that was a real mistake made by a majority of the committee. Secondly, I have some issues with some of the other line adjustments. I fundamentally do not agree that Venetia should be included within the Villages of Homestead seat. We tried to maintain neighborhoods and similar concerns and demographics and types of housing. I do not believe it is appropriate to move Venetia into the Villages, and for that reason, I'm going to vote against the ordinance as well as the at-large issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. 2 noes. Thank you. Mr. Manager, we got one final issue?
No, none for the committee of the whole.
None for the committee of the whole. Any other business for the committee, Ms. Bell? Mr. Hall?
I don't dare.
No business? Mr. Vice Mayor? No, thank you. And Ms. Wallman? And welcome back, Ms. Wallman. It's a pleasure to have you back.
I'm half back.
Ms. Garner?
I'm sorry, but I do have one item.
Okay.
Beginning with the next issue, the Hometown Tribune will no longer be mailed out. The publishers, Miller Publishing, came to us and told us in order to continue printing the quantity, which is approximately 20,000 papers, that the city would have to pay for it. So Lillian did some research, and I feel that we were taken for a ride because no other cities that they do papers for pay for anything. So they wanted to come to us. We were paying them already over $35,000 a year. They wanted us to start paying over $66,000 a year. Now, it's sent out bulk mail. It does go to a lot of households, but it's often stale. I get mine 2 weeks after I get it here. The last 20 pages are full of ads. I really don't see the value in it. I think we could use that money for other purposes. I just don't see that it's a justifiable expense. And, we've budgeted into this year's budget the newsletter, which is quarterly. We want to work with Adkins and Company, the company that I've been working with right now. I'll bring you more information on that coming soon. But we want to do more things like direct mail piece, specifically to our residents. It's not going to be bulked up with ads. It's just going to be information like, this is what's going on. This is what's affecting you. This is what's going on in this city. So I just wanted everybody to know that. We have other avenues that we're looking into to get information out. A lot of different things that the committee's working on, but I don't see that we could continue, doing this for them for free, because it's an exorbitant amount of money. I just can't see it as justifiable.
Mayor?
Ms. Bell?
Thank you. Is there not something that we can do? Because a lot of people really like the Hometown Tribune and really do like it. Now, I asked about a year and a half ago about the ads and about if we had done any research on what they were benefiting from the ads and that we're paying a sizable amount for this paper while they're reaping the benefits from the ads. Did we ever do any research on that?
Yes.
Why can't we do a Tribune type paper ourselves?
Well, let me back up 1 second. They will still be publishing. They'll have 6,000 copies which they're going to distribute to businesses around here. So City Hall will still get copies of it. It just won't be direct mail to residents.
That means most of them aren't going to get it then.
Mayor.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
My understanding that even this issue will not be mailed, which is a big disappointment given that we have an election coming up. There were charter issues as well as others that I would like to have seen gotten directly into the hands of the public that will not be.
Yeah, we need to do something.
I think we had already budgeted money in next year's budget to continue the Tribune on that same cost level. I know I've talked to our staff, and I hope that we can reallocate that to do our own newsletter. If the Hometown Tribune continues on the newsstand, that's fine as a freebie, but that we can do something that's mailed on our dime, our news.
We have to do
not
something.
Not Palmetto Bay, not Cutler Bay.
Right, we do have plans to do other things.
Right.
Just, I don't think we should subsidize their company when they have, I have examples of 10 other cities that they do newspapers for that don't pay a dime.
We can do that within the budget that we had.
Correct, and we can have complete control over it. We can decide what we want to send out to the residents, so.
If I just might, Mayor, if I might just make one comment.
Ms. Gorman?
A lot of the things are sometimes 45 to 60 days late. I mean, it's disgraceful. So, I think that's good.
Well, if you have any ideas, just feed it through Ms. Garner's committee. We just need to, on a consistent basis, get some updated news to the community. So if there's an alternative, I'm pleased with it. And we're saving monies at the same time. So, it's good. Mr. Porter?
I'd just like to ask the manager, the 344th Street shrubbery is still in the street, and I think we've all agreed that it's a safety issue, and I believe that I would ask the manager, maybe with support from the council, to send someone out there to remove that off the road and slap a lien on the lien holder, because we are ultimately going to be responsible for damages anytime anybody gets hurt. Richard, that is correct, right? It's a public right-of-way, but there's an operational agreement with someone to pay for maintenance.
I think I saw a letter go out to the owners.
Well, with all due respect, while we're transferring letters back and forth, the greenery is still in the road, and somebody does get hurt, we have to have some sort of a problem.
We'll work on that.
I would think that would be the appropriate. We've done it in the past. I think it would be the appropriate move. I drove the road today, and it's still growing.
Okay. Well, we'll look at that tomorrow and
thank you.
Get some action going.
That's all, Mayor.
And Mr. Manager, I got a call from Ms. Campbell about the renovations of the old City Hall.
Yes, sir.
And she really has some concerns, but I have a staff member to talk to her because they said they're going to take down all, she's crazy about those bricks, and they're going to take down the bricks and put them in some other location, and she got some, have anybody talked to her?
Mayor, we've been meeting with her to go over the whole interior plan renovation, and she's agreed to move the bricks because that's where the new elevator is going to go, and in turn, we're going to give her an expanded gift shop on the north side of the building.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Because I just got a call on Friday, and
I'll follow up with her tomorrow. Sure.
And if she's satisfied, tell her to give me a call, would you?
I will, sure.
Anything else for the committee to hold? If not, thank you all very much.
Mr. Mayor, now we have the workshop, going to the workshop. There isn't